Here are the top stories for today, August 12, 2020. The DOST is set to lead clinical trials for a COVID-19 vaccine offered by Russia. Around 50 barangay chairpersons may face suspension over alleged anomalies in the distribution of the social amelioration program. The Supreme Court sets the oral arguments on petitions against the Anti-Terror Act in September. And the DOJ forms a task force to investigate the killing of NDF consultant Randall Echanis. Good day, I'm Rom Dulfo. Welcome to PNA Newsroom. The Department of Science and Technology, or DOST, will lead the clinical trials for COVID-19 vaccine developed by the Russian Federation. The Department of Health says the DOST will do the clinical trials in accordance with the requirements of the Food and Drug Administration. On Monday, President Rodrigo Duterte accepted Russia's offer and even volunteered to take the first shot of the vaccine. According to the DOH, the Russian Federation has completed the Phase 3 of clinical trials of the COVID-19 vaccine developed by their National Research Center for Epidemiology. On Tuesday, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that the first COVID-19 vaccine in the world has been registered in Russia. Putin said the vaccine trials have yielded positive results, with all volunteers having built up immunity to the coronavirus. The World Health Organization earlier warned Russia that it should not stray from the usual methods of testing a vaccine for safety and effectiveness. The Russian phase of the COVID-19 vaccine clinical trials is not included in the latest WHO's list of vaccine trials globally.
Kinakailangan din nating sundin ang batas na umiiral sa Pilipinas, no, dahil nga po walang gamot na hindi po pwedeng ibigay sa publiko na hindi dumadaan sa FDA. Ang FDA naman po hindi mag-i-issue ng permit to utilize isang gamot kung wala po yung clinical trial. So dadaan din po yan sa proseso natin yan.
Following President Duterte's willingness to be the first to be injected by the Russian vaccine, Roque explained that the president is more than willing to sacrifice his life to ensure that the vaccine is safe.
Well, yan po siguro ay sa loobin na ng presidente kung kinakailangan na isugal nga niya ang buhay niya para masigurado na itong vaksina ito ay makakasalba ng buhay dito sa Pilipinas, gagawin po niya yon.
Malacanang said it would be highly unlikely for President Duterte to retain the stricter Modified Enhanced Community Quarantine or MECQ status in Metro Manila and its nearby provinces. President Duterte on Monday said he wanted to heed the requests of medical frontliners to extend MECQ in Metro Manila and nearby provinces until end of August. However, he admits that the depleting funds of the government is a hindrance to the possible retention of MECQ status.
Ang tanong ay kung posible, ang sagot ko, anything is possible but highly unlikely. Bottom line po, naubos na po ang ating resources for ayuda.
Asked if the proposed Bayanihan to Recover as One Act or Bayanihan 2 will give additional funding to boost the government's COVID-19 response, Roque said it still depends on the provisions included in the measure. He also agreed with Vice President Leni Robredo, saying the rise in COVID-19 cases is due to community transmission. Roque nevertheless assured the public that the government is doing its very best to combat COVID-19 and that the government is being aggressive in conducting tests in villages under localized lockdown. The government is also intensifying its efforts in isolating people infected with the new coronavirus, tracing people exposed to infected individuals, and increasing the number of COVID-19 beds.
We may not be as successful, but I can assure you, everyone is working darn hard to find a solution to the problem. Kung magkulang man, well, pagpasensyahan po. Pero hindi nyo po maakusa ang gobyernong ito na natutulog sa pansitan.
Around 50 barangay chairpersons may face suspension over alleged anomalies in the distribution of the Social Amelioration Program, or SAP. In a televised meeting with President Duterte, Interior Secretary Eduardo Año said the Office of the Ombudsman will issue preventive suspension orders against barangay chairmen for alleged malversation, corruption, estafa, and graft. He said the Criminal Investigation and Detection Group, or CIDG, has filed 155 criminal complaints about SAP anomalies. Based on their initial investigation, ANYO said those who may be suspended include 26 barangay chairpersons in NCR and Region 1 or ILOCOS Region, 11 in Region 4A or Calabarzon, 10 in Region 2 or Cagayan Valley, and 3 in Region 3 or Central Luzon.
Ako po ay nakipag-ugnayan kay Ombudsman Manuel Martires at ang kanyang opisina at naisabit na po namin itong mga kaso na to at within the week po ay inaasahan namin na initially ay 50 barangay captain ang makakaroon ng preventive suspension habang iniimbestiga po ng ombudsman ang administrative aspect ng kanilang mga kaso. Ito po yung initial at ang mga iba pa ay susunod lang po sa patuloy na pag-iimbestiga ng ating ombudsman.
I'd like to thank Secretary Anyo for his work in going after corrupt officials. Maligaya ako sa trabaho ni Secretary Anyo.
The local government units in NCR are ramping up efforts to curb the spread of COVID-19 in their communities. William Theo will give us an update about the strict implementation of health protocols in Pasay, Quezon City, and Manila.
As our country intensifies our test, trace, and treat program, some local government units are also doing its part to combat the dreaded coronavirus disease. In Manila, over 500,000 free washable face masks are distributed to its residents in line with the efforts of the city government to contain the spread of COVID-19. Manila Mayor Isko Moreno Dumagoso said the project aims to help poor Manileños so they can use whatever money they have for other necessities such as food. It also aims to provide livelihood, especially for the displaced sewers and master cutters, as many of them lost their jobs due to the pandemic. Dumagoso said they are targeting to distribute at least 1 million face masks for Manileños. He said he copied the idea from a Czechoslovakian concept. In Pasay City, a Contact Tracing Command Center, or CTCC, has been established as a preventive measure against local transmission of COVID-19. It would serve as the nerve center for data gathering in Pasay City. The local government is also using a tracing app called One Country 100 to further intensify its contact tracing among infected residents with their close contacts. Pasay City allows motorcycle back riding only for those with essential travels, provided that they wear face masks and put up a back shield. Tricycles are also allowed to operate for the use of essential workers, healthcare workers, and other essential frontliners. A no face shield, no ride policy is strictly implemented as of August 10. In Quezon City, more satellite offices are opened and more city personnel have been deployed to further beef up its contact tracing efforts. The city established satellite contact tracing offices in Districts 3 and 6 to intensify the monitoring of suspected, probable, and confirmed cases in barangays. 4 more satellite offices will be set up in the remaining districts in the coming days. The local government also has formed a total of 90 teams of field and phone contact tracers and also tapped the assistance of 300 barangay contact tracers and 30 personnel from the Philippine National Police. The city currently has around 600 contact tracers. Dr. Rolando Cruz of the City Epidemiology and Surveillance Unit said identifying infection routes by going down the communities is as equally important as finding treatment for COVID-19. For the PNA Newsroom, I am William Theo.
Amid controversies hounding PhilHealth, PhilHealth Chief Ricardo Morales filed a medical leave following his doctor's advice to undergo 6 cycles of chemotherapy at a private hospital in Metro Manila. Morales' health condition has prompted calls for his resignation. Roque, however, reiterated that President Duterte still trusts Morales despite several issues plaguing PhilHealth.
Alam niyo, sinasabi ni Presidente, kilala niya bilang isang marangal na sundalo itong si General Morales. Nais niya makita ang ebidensya. Kahit ano po maging desisyon ni General Morales, meron po talagang system in place para magpatuloy po ang trabaho ng kahit anong organisasyon sa gobyerno. We wish him the best and we hope that he recovers right away.
Still to come, the Supreme Court sets the oral arguments on petitions against the Anti-Terror Act of 2020 in September. Cases of COVID-19 in Cotabato City dropped to 0. More on these when the PNA Newsroom continues.
Tandaan ang tamang paraan ng paghuhugas at paglilinis ng kamay upang makaiwas sa iba't ibang karamdaman. Basain ng tubig ang mga kamay at sabunin. Unang sabunin ang mga palad at ang likod ng mga kamay. Kuskusin na maigi ang pagitan ng mga daliri at maging ang mga kuko. Isunod ang pagitan ng mga hinlalaki at kuskusin ng paikot ang mga dulo ng mga daliri sa magkabilang palad. Banlawang mabuti ang mga kamay sa malinis na tubig at patuyuin ang mga kamay gamit ang single-use towel o air dryer. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito. Alamin kung paano ang tamang pagsusuot ng surgical mask. Una, hawakan ang mask sa strap at siguruhing natatakpan nito ang inyong bibig at ilong. Tandaan, ang may kulay na bahagi ng mask ang dapat nasa labas. Ito lamang ang tamang paraan ng pagsuot nito. Ihulma ang nose piece o maliit na metallic strip ayon sa hugis ng inyong ilong. Iwasan ang paghawak sa inyong ilong at bibig. Kung marumi na ang mask, hubarin ito gamit ang strap at itapon ito sa isang basurahan. Siguruhin ang maayos na paghuhugas ng kamay gamit ang sabon at tubig. Ang surgical mask ay dapat gamitin ng mga pasyenteng may sakit sa baga o mga taong mayroong ubo, sipon at lagnat, mga nag-aalaga sa mga may sakit, at mga healthcare at frontline workers. Maaari ring magsuot nito kung kayo ay pupunta sa matataong lugar. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
You're still watching PNA Newsroom. The Supreme Court on Tuesday consolidated the more than 25 petitions questioning the legality of RA 11479 or the Anti-Terror Act of 2020. SC spokesperson Brian Keith Hosaka said the Supreme Court will be conducting oral arguments on the third week of September at the earliest, and proper notices will be issued once the date is finalized. Solicitor General Jose Calida earlier said RA 11479 is already in effect, even if the government has yet to craft its implementing rules and regulations or IRR. Calida said the law is self-executing, except for provisions in the law delegating functions to the Anti-Terrorism Council and the Bureau of Jail Management and Penology or BJMP and Bureau of Corrections to craft purely administrative rules for the effective implementation of policies. In an earlier consolidated comment filed before the SC, Calida said suits questioning the law are premature and pointed out the absence of cases or actual controversies involving rights which are legally demandable and enforceable. He adds the petitioner's invocation that the law would create a chilling effect is insufficient to bring their claims under the penal statute and is not susceptible to a facial challenge before the courts. The Department of Foreign Affairs has intensified its operations to bring home the Filipinos who are still in Lebanon following a deadly explosion in Beirut last week. The DFA assures that they are taking all the necessary actions to guarantee the safety of overseas Filipinos there. With protesters taking to the streets for days and the surprise resignation of Lebanon's government, Migrant Workers Affairs USEC Saralu Ariola said they are not leaving anyone behind and that more steps will be implemented in the coming days. The first of the DFA chartered flights from Beirut is expected to land in Manila on August 17 with some 400 overseas Filipinos. About 31,000 Filipinos remain in Lebanon. The Mindanao Development Authority or MINDA has provided a financial aid worth 200,000 to a group of Cotabato farmers in Imlang Town that produces face shields with bamboo components. MINDA Secretary Emmanuel Piñol said the agency decided to provide support to the group following the deluge of orders that came in following his Facebook post promoting the locally made product. The face shield is designed by Junro Barrios, a young agricultural engineer from Emlang, North Cotabato. The farmers, who belong to the Central Mindanao Green Workers Association and who all work at home, sought MINDA's support last week. Piñol said that MINDA, through its Minda Tienda program, will link up the farmers with big companies for huge orders to facilitate the delivery of the bamboo face shields. 3 patients in Pagudpud, Ilocos Norte have recovered from COVID-19. Meanwhile, cases in Cotabato City dropped to 0 after the recovery of its lone patient. More on this from Chris Bundo.
The municipality of Pagudpud, Ilocos Norte reported on Tuesday the recovery of 3 COVID-19 patients who were previously exposed to an infected individual. The recovered patients were all asymptomatic and already tested negative for COVID-19 before their discharge on Monday. Mayor Rafael Ralph Benemerito Jr. said this brings the total recovered patients in the municipality to 5. Today, Pagudpud town has only 1 remaining active patient who is on the road to recovery. In Cotabato City, the lone patient at the city government's isolation facility walked out cleared from the virus, dropping its number of cases to 0. Mayor Frances Cynthia Gianni Sayadi said the last patient at the facility was ushered out on Tuesday night. A cumulative report of confirmed cases here showed a total of 28 with no death since March this year. Despite the development, Gianni Sayadi urged Cotabateños not to be complacent and to continue practicing the minimum health protocols. Meanwhile, a 24-year-old woman was confirmed as the first COVID-19 case in QUIRINO province on Monday night, breaking the 5-month virus-free record. Governor Daquila Carlo Cua on Tuesday said provincial government has been implementing stricter health and safety protocols to prevent spread of the virus. The patient from the town was brought to the Southern Isabela Medical Center for treatment and isolation. The governor has ordered a thorough contact tracing. For the PNA Newsroom, I'm Chris Mundo.
The Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines has partnered with the British Embassy in Manila to strengthen enforcement of intellectual property rights and enhance the competitiveness and financial leverage of micro, small, and medium enterprises. IPO Field Director General Roel Barba and Her Majesty's Ambassador to the Philippines, Daniel Cruz, signed the Memorandum of Understanding on August 6. The MOU aims to design a regulatory framework for a more sustainable e-commerce regime in the Philippines, strengthen IP enforcement at the border, and share best practices for businesses. The MOU helps promote certain goals of the 2020-2025 IP Rights Action Plan of the ASEAN, such as developing a data collection methodology of IP enforcement cases. It also supports the creation of a comprehensive manual on legal actions which businesses can take to enforce their IP rights. The MOU signing marks the continued support and assistance of the UK to the Philippines through the UK Prosperity Fund. Up next, the DOJ forms a task force to investigate the killing of NDF consultant Randall Echanes. And Quezon City begins disbursing the second part of the government's social amelioration program. The PNA Newsroom returns after these reminders.
Sa matinding laban natin sa Coronavirus Disease 2019, sugpuin din natin ang pagkalat ng fake news. Huwag magbahagi ng impormasyon na hindi tiyak ang pinagmulan. I-check mabuti ang source ng balita. Kumuha lamang ng impormasyon mula sa mga official channel ng Department of Health. Huwag magpadala sa maling balita. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa. Kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito. Alamin ang tamang paraan ng pag-ubo upang mapigilan ang paglaganap ng Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ugaliing magdala ng panyo o tissue. Kung uubo o babahing, takpan ang buong ilong at bibig gamit ang panyo o tissue. Kung walang dalang panyo o tissue, maaaring gamitin ang braso na pantakip. Kung nakararamdam na kailangan umubo o bumahing, agad na dumistansya sa mga tao sa paligid. Huwag dumura kung saan-saan, gumamit ng tissue at itapon sa basurahan. Ugaliin ang paghuhugas ng kamay at paggamit ng alcohol o hand sanitizer upang mamatay ang mikrobyo. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
The government will launch a formal investigation into the death of National Democratic Front consultant Randy Echanes. Justice Secretary Manilo Guevara said Tuesday he directed the task force on extrajudicial killings to form a special investigating team to look into the incident. Guevara, however, said they will wait for the family's confirmation that the victim was Echanes, given the confusion on his identity. In a virtual press conference in Davao City, Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the government should not be blamed for the death of the consultant. This after Communist Party of the Philippines founding chair Jose Maria Joma Sison blamed President Duterte and the president's men for the murder. Roque told Sison to await the results of the investigation before making conclusions. Echanes and an unidentified neighbor were found dead inside a rented house in Novaliches, Quezon City early Monday. Atrocities perpetrated by the New People's Army or NPA in recent months have claimed the lives of at least 7 Negrense civilians, according to the Philippine Army. As of Tuesday, a list provided by the military showed that in June alone, 3 were killed in Negros Occidental while 4 were also murdered by the NPA in Negros Oriental. The 8th victim, on the other hand, was a soldier. The Army said the killings sparked outrage and condemnation from officials in Gihulngan, but the NPA justified their atrocities with fabricated lies and instead put the blame on the armed forces of the Philippines. It said the NPA continues to commit a blatant violation of the rule of law, the Comprehensive Agreement on Respect for Human Rights and International Humanitarian Law, and now the Anti-Terrorism Law. In our foreign news, more than 20 million cases of COVID-19 have been confirmed worldwide, according to data compiled late Monday by US-based Johns Hopkins University. Over 730,000 people have died after contracting the virus, while 12 million have recovered after treatment. The US is leading with the most confirmed infections at 5.085 million, followed by Brazil with over 3 billion cases and India with more than 2 million. Meanwhile, the World Health Organization said Tuesday it is following Russia's progress in developing a COVID-19 vaccine, but cautioned that progress in the fight against the virus should not compromise on safety. This follows Russian President Vladimir Putin's earlier announcement that Russia had registered the world's first COVID-19 vaccine. The WHO says they are in close contact with Russian health authorities and discussions are ongoing with respect to possible pre-qualification of the vaccine. It said as soon as essential clinical trial data is available, national regulatory bodies need to be ready to review the safety and efficacy data before using it. The WHO has its accelerator program seeking to speed up research for an effective vaccine for all countries. The Philippine tourism industry continues to feel the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, as reflected in the 73% drop in foreign visitor arrivals for the first 7 months of 2020 from the same period last year. Tourism Undersecretary Benito Benzon Jr. said only about 1.3 million visitors from January to July 2020 have been recorded, down from the 4.8 million international tourists in 2019. He also reported that tourism revenue dived 72% to 81 billion pesos in the same period. With virtually no foreigners visiting the country, Bengzon is optimistic local travel could fill in the gaps once tourism activities fully resume and local destinations reopen. He said 10.8% of the country's GDP could be attributed to domestic tourism. Bengzon said the entire sector is also hoping to get assistance through the bills being pushed in Congress. The Quezon City government announced that it is now disbursing the second part of the national government's Social Amelioration Program, or SAP. Mayor Joy Belmonte said over 350,000 of the city's target recipients of the Department of Social Welfare and Development are already funded, and disbursement is now underway. Disbursement of the fund is made by the national government through GCash and not downloaded to the local government. City Administrator Mike Alimurong said over 217,000 families who were waitlisted from the first tranche of SAP have been encoded and funded. Meanwhile, Belmonte announced that the distribution of Quezon City's own SAP will continue after the lapse of MECQ on August 18. The city government SAP has allotted 4,000 pesos financial assistance for each of the families left out of the national government's SAP. Let's take another look at today's biggest stories. The DOST is set to lead clinical trials for a COVID-19 vaccine offered by Russia. Around 50 barangay chairpersons may face suspension over alleged anomalies in the distribution of the Social Amelioration Program. The Supreme Court sets the oral arguments on petitions against the Anti-Terror Act in September. And the DOJ forms a task force to investigate the killing of NDF consultant Randall Echanis. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, check our webpage or head on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags on our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know from the PNA Newsroom. I am Rom Dulfo. Good day and stay safe.